Everyone's talking about AI chips, right? But what if I told you the real fight for the future of AI isn't about who can make the fastest processor? No, it's happening in a totally hidden arena, a high-stakes race that involves billions of dollars and the physics of light itself. This quote right here, it just nails it. The biggest bottleneck for AI isn't processing speed anymore. The new choke point, the real problem, is testing. It's about making sure these tiny little components that use light to move data actually work before they get shipped out the door. And that one single problem is exactly what we're going to unpack today. And the prize for whoever solves this? Yeah, it's not small. The market for this technology, which is called silicon photonics, is on track to hit nearly $18 billion by 2035. That's the scale of the prize on the table, and it's all being driven by AI's just insatiable hunger for more data. So let's be really clear about what we're dealing with. This isn't just some techie puzzle. People inside the industry are calling it a black hole. It's this critical, unsolved problem with billions and billions of dollars swirling right around it, sitting at the very heart of AI's next evolution. And to understand why, we first have to talk about what's coming to an end. To really get what this black hole is all about, you gotta understand the backstory. For decades, for as long as we've had modern computing, everything has relied on one thing to move data from point A to point B. Well, we are now witnessing the very end of that era, the era of copper. For ages, electricity zipping through copper wires was the answer, but as you can see on the left, it's hit a wall, a literal physical wall. At the kind of speeds AI needs, copper signals can barely even travel a meter, and they are power hogs, just consuming a massive amount of energy. So physics has basically forced our hand. The future, what you see on the right, is light. It's photons, which can travel farther, use way less power, and carry a whole lot more data. So what's the solution? Well, it's this really elegant idea called co-packaged optics, or CPO for short. The concept is beautifully simple. Just get rid of that copper connection altogether. Instead, you put the tiny components that create and guide light right next to the main processor, all inside the same little package. It's a game changer for sure, but it creates a whole new kind of problem. But here's the twist. This beautiful, elegant solution, it creates this just massive new problem. When it comes to making sure everything works, it's a true engineering nightmare. And at the very heart of this nightmare is a specific piece of tech from TSMC called COUPE. Now look at this design. It is wild. They take a standard electronic chip, for logic, and they stack it directly on top of a photonic chip, one that deals with light. Then they bond them together into one single revolutionary component. So why is this such a nightmare to test? Well, because you have to check both chips, the electronic one and the light one, at the same time. And the ways you do that, they're like oil and water. They just don't mix. On the left, you see electrical testing. That needs physical probes to literally touch down on the chip. But on the right, you've got optical testing. That needs unbelievably precise fiber optic alignment to send and receive light. One needs brute force contact, the other needs delicate precision. They are fundamentally incompatible. And yet, you have to do both at the same time at production speed. The industry breaks this whole testing thing down into three main stages, or what they call insertions. As you can see, insertion 1, testing the photonic chip all by itself, that's a solved problem. We're good there. And insertion 3, testing the final finished product, also solved. But that one in the middle, that critical step, insertion 2, testing the stacked chip after they're stuck together but before they're put in the final package, that's our black hole. Right now, nobody has a solution that's ready for mass production. And you know what happens when you have a problem this big with a prize this huge, right? You get a race, a big one. So let's take a look at the key players who are scrambling to be the first one to solve this thing. In one corner, you've got the heavyweights, the incumbents. Advantest, a company that already controls about half of the entire market for this kind of test equipment, has teamed up with FormFactor. They're definitely seen as the frontrunners, and they're shooting to have a working proof of concept ready to go by the first half of 2026. And in the other corner, you've got Teradyne, the other huge player in the space. They're taking a totally different approach. Instead of partnering up, they just went out and bought the tech they needed, an optical tech company called Quantify, so they can build an all-in-one, completely vertically integrated solution. And, we absolutely cannot forget the dark horses. We're talking about specialized Taiwanese companies like MPI and Hermes. And what's their secret weapon? It's geography. They are right next door to TSMC, which could give them a serious home field advantage when it comes to getting their solutions approved and into the factory. So what you're seeing here are two totally different strategies, two different ways to win. On one side, you've got Advanced and FormFactor. They're leveraging their existing power, their massive market share, and the fact that it's really expensive and painful for customers to switch away from their systems. But on the other side, Teradyne is making a different bet. They're betting that by buying and owning the unique optical tech, they've cornered a critical resource that everybody is going to need. Okay, so why is everyone freaking out about this one specific test? It all comes down to money. A lot of money. Let's talk about the absolutely astronomical cost of failure here. There's this idea in manufacturing called shift-left testing, and it's super simple. The earlier you find a mistake, the cheaper it is to fix. Finding a bad chip, just one faulty little square on that big silicon wafer, costs pennies. But if that exact same bad chip makes its way into the final, fully assembled module that's worth thousands of dollars, well, the cost just explodes. Insertion 2 is the very last chance to catch that mistake while it's still cheap. And this right here, this is the industry's dirty little secret. It's Plan B. If a real solution for insertion 2 isn't ready in time, the fallback plan is to just skip it. Yep, they'll risk shipping some bad parts just to meet their deadlines, hoping they can catch the failures at the very end, even though it costs a fortune to do so. So that begs the real question, right? What is the actual cost of taking that gamble? It means lower manufacturing yields, which is bad. It means more expensive failures found way too late in the process. And it means potentially soaring warranty costs down the line. It is a massive, massive trade-off that really threatens the profitability of this entire revolution. So, at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one thing: a single critical choke point in the manufacturing process for the future of AI. And the company that figures out how to control it, well, they effectively control the market. And get this, the timeline to solve it is insanely tight. Look at this. 2026 is basically the gauntlet. They need a proof of concept by the first half of the year, they need production-ready tools by the middle of the year, and then mass production starts ramping up in the second half. The clock is absolutely ticking. So let's just recap why this is such a massive deal. First, whoever wins this race gets a multi-year head start on everyone else. Second, every major AI chip from NVIDIA, from Broadcom, you name it, if it's using this TSMC tech, it will need this test. Third, because finding failures early is so important, customers will pay a huge premium for a working solution. And finally, this one test literally determines the cost and the efficiency of the entire CPO revolution. Look, the move to using light to move data, it's happening. It's inevitable. There's no stopping it. The real multi-billion-dollar question is this: who is going to be the one standing at this